call the public hearing to order. We are here tonight to welcome the public and welcome you to the hearing tonight on behalf of the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. Can everybody hear me back there? My name is James Thrash. I'm the designated hearing officer for these proceedings. The role of the hearing officer is limited to ensuring an orderly hearing so that an accurate record of this hearing may be developed for the department's evaluation. I do not make any decisions regarding these proposed permits or the permit actions. On behalf of the department, we appreciate your participation in tonight's hearing for the following proposed permit or permit action for the Alabama Power Company's Gadsden Steam Plant Ash Pond located in Section 2, Township 12 South, Range 6 East in Etowah County, Alabama, consisting of approximately 130.2 acres with a disposal area that consists of approximately 58.73 acres. The proposed initial issuance of a coal combustion residuals, which many times tonight you'll hear that referred to as CCR. This permit is permit number 2809, and it is to close the Plant Gadsden Ash Pond. The purpose of the hearing is to provide the public an opportunity to present oral testimony on the proposed permit actions. In addition to oral testimony, the department will also consider all written comments submitted before the close of the public comment period. The department has requested your comments, and we appreciate you taking your time to make them known to us. On September the 24th of this year, 2020, notice of the date, time, place, and purpose of this hearing was posted on the department's website and published in the Gadsden Times. However, due to Hurricane Zeta, it was postponed until today. In addition, the department sent notice of this hearing and the postponement by email to individuals and organizations who had previously requested advance notice of permit proceedings. A copy of the notice and the email distribution list will be entered into the record at the conclusion of these proceedings. Copies of the public notice, permit application, preliminary determination, and draft permit have been made available for inspection by the public at the offices of the Department of Environmental Management at 1400 Coliseum Boulevard in Montgomery, as well as on the department's website. This hearing is open to the public, and anyone wishing to present oral testimony or submit a written statement may do so. Lengthy statements or those containing considerable technical details or other complex data should be submitted in writing. However, summaries of such statements may be presented orally tonight. All testimony and written comments should be as factual as possible and should address the subject of this hearing. This hearing is an opportunity for members of the public to offer comments to help ensure that all relevant factors are considered before a final permit decision is made. Please be advised that the department is limited in the factors that it considers when making permit decisions and must base the determination only on whether the permit applicant has satisfied those requirements of applicable environmental statutes and regulations granted to ADM by the legislature. Persons giving testimony may be questioned by the hearing officer or other department staff to clarify points and to develop a better understanding of what is being presented. This proceeding tonight is not an open forum as in a question and answer session. The hearing is an opportunity for you to submit comments that you wish the department to consider in the final review of the permit application. However, you may propose a comment in the form of a question, which will be compiled and addressed by the department in its complete response to comments. In addition to oral testimony, written comments may be submitted on the proposed permit action. You do not have to make an oral statement tonight in order to have your written comments considered by the department. Written statements may be submitted to the hearing officer or to me tonight, or delivered to the department in Montgomery as directed in the public notice for this hearing. All written statements previously submitted and those received by the department before the end of the public comment period will be included in the hearing record. After giving full consideration to the hearing record, the department will make its final decision on the proposed permit actions and develop responses to comments for the proposed permit. The hearing record, final permit determinations, and responses to comments will be posted to the department's e-file system. The hearing is being captured by a court reporter to develop a transcript of this hearing for review by the department. In addition, the entire proceedings are being recorded on video to be posted on the department's YouTube channel to make it accessible to the public. Now let's move on to the purpose of this hearing, and that is the receipt of public comments. The order of appearances of persons giving testimony will be as follows. First, representatives of the Department of Environmental Management, Land Division, then representatives of Alabama Power Company, then any elected official or their representatives who have pre-registered to speak. All remaining members of the public will be heard in the order in which they registered during the pre-registration offered online or by telephone, and then those who registered on site here tonight. I now recognize Mr. Devin Jenkins to present a statement on behalf of the Department's Land Division.
Thank you. Good evening, my name is Devin Jenkins, and on behalf of the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, we thank you for participating in the permitting process for the Gadsden Steam Plant, Permit 28-09. Alabama Power Company has submitted to the Alabama Department of Environmental Management an application for the initial issuance of a coal combustion residuals permit to close for the plant Gadsden Ash Pond at the Gadsden Steam Plant. The plant Gadsden Ash Pond is a CCR surface impoundment located in Section 2, Township 12 South, Range 6 East, in Etowah County, Alabama, consisting of approximately 130.22 acres with a disposal area that consists of approximately 58.73 acres. The proposed permit would require the permittee to manage CCR in accordance with the conditions of the proposed permit, ADM Administrative Code R335-13-15, standards for the disposal of coal combustion residuals in landfills and surface impoundments, and the approved permit application. Groundwater monitoring and corrective action requirements in the proposed permit establish a groundwater monitoring system of wells that provide an accurate representation of the groundwater quality underlying the unit, and a groundwater monitoring plan to establish appropriate sampling and analysis of the system to detect the presence of CCR constituents. For units where CCR constituents exceed acceptable levels, the proposed permit establishes corrective action requirements to remediate contamination caused by the unit. Closure criteria in the proposed permit establish requirements for all units to close in accordance with specified standards and time frames. Post-closure criteria in the proposed permit require each unit be maintained for a period of time after closure, including maintaining groundwater monitoring and corrective action to ensure the long-term safety of the units that are closing. The permittee must comply with all conditions of the proposed permit, except to the extent and for the duration such non-compliance is authorized by a variance granted by ADM. The first variance request to exclude boron is an Appendix 4 assessment monitoring constituent. The second variance requests groundwater protection standards of 6 micrograms per liter for cobalt, 50 15 micrograms per liter for lead, 40 micrograms per liter for lithium, and 100 micrograms per liter for molybdenum. The third variance requests the final grade of the cover system be less than 5% and greater than 25%. The fourth variance being requested is from 335-13-15-.036, requiring 100-foot buffer from the perimeter of the facility boundary. Based on our review of the initial permit application, the department has made a preliminary determination that the proposed facility would be in compliance with the applicable state and federal solid waste disposal requirements and thus protective of human health and the environment. The proposed permit includes the following conditions. 1. Upon renewal, the permit would be valid for a 10-year period. 2. The permittee would conduct groundwater monitoring semi-annually. 3. The permittee would implement and maintain a corrective action program. 4. The permittee would maintain the integrity of the final cover system throughout the life of the permit and post-closure period. 5. The permittee would, at all times, properly maintain the facility and all systems in accordance with the application and the permit. 6. The permittee would obtain the approval of ADEM for any change or modification to the facility or a system which might otherwise result in non-compliance with the permit or ADEM's administrative code. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to provide an opportunity to receive public comment regarding the application and proposed permit. The department welcomes your input to this process and will consider all technical comments prior to making a final decision concerning the issuance of this permit, and will provide a written response to each commenter and to those requesting specific notice of our decision. Thank you again for participating in the hearing.
We will now proceed to the receipt of public comments from representatives of the permit applicant. We have anyone from Alabama Power Company that wishes to speak? Okay, let the record reflect there was no one present from Alabama Power Company. Okay, next we would like to recognize any elected officials that would like to make a comment tonight. And I understand we've got 2 elected officials. We've got Mayor Larry Means with the City of Attala. Would you please step on up, sir? Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we'd
Thank
like
you.
to-
Go ahead, I'm
We'd
sorry.
like to remind everybody tonight we won't have the
Okay.
7-minute clock running, and we ask you to keep your comments limited to 7
Okay.
minutes, please.
It won't take that long. Yes, and I know my lens is out of my glasses. I had cataract surgery yesterday, so you'll have to excuse me. Let me say up front, I appreciate the opportunity to come speak before you on behalf of the City of Attala, plus our relationship with Alabama Power. I was the mayor of Attala from 92 to 98, and I served in the Alabama Senate from 98 to 2010. I was on the CTU committee. I don't even know if that's the name of it. At that time, had a lot of dealings with Alabama Power, besides locally when I was in the mayor in the 90s, but as my time in the Senate. And I actually got to know a lot of people. And I have to say, and I'm going to read some of this stuff, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Yes, sir, that's fine.
As a state senator from 1998 to 2010, I came to know and see the relationship Alabama Power had with not only communities, but also cities and individuals that they serve. My grandfather worked for Alabama Power for 46, probably 48 years. He's still mad at me this day. I know he's passed away for not going to work at Alabama Power, but I went to work at Gulf State Seal. But anyway, I remember him vividly. He was so passionate about his job and everything with Alabama Power, and I learned a lot about Alabama Power. But I'm here today to express my, I guess, relationship and what I learned to know about Alabama Power as being the mayor and state senator. Anything I could pass along to my constituents. I get calls, not every day, but at least once a week about something about Alabama, it has to do with Alabama Power. Not about the power rates, I'm not going to talk about that. But let me say up front, in the last storm, we had a little storm that came through, it just barely got a Tyler, which is my hometown, and it went through Reese City. And there was an elderly lady called, and they got in touch with me, and she had, not just elderly, she was handicapped. Had this during the daytime, and she had a line across, and she didn't know if it was live or not. And they got me, and I called the district manager. He came out there personally himself and helped get that off. It was not live, but just those kind of things. I've never called on Alabama Power that they didn't try to help me with what I needed. By being on the CTU committee, I saw how they handled anything that had to do with the environment. They always were very responsive. Can't say enough about them. Have nothing negative to say about Alabama Power at all. I don't know a lot about the situation, you know, about the environmental thing right here locally, but we have a satellite office in Tyler. We were one of the ones that they had to shut down. We still call ourselves the birthplace of Alabama Power. There's some discrepancies there, I think, after I left office in the 90s, but anyway. But they've always been real quick to respond to anything, and I think in this particular instance, if they responded to this about since the Goodyear plant is shut down. But that being said, like I said, I was going to make mine mighty short and be glad to, I guess, answer any questions or anything. I can't hear good either, so when you get old like me, you got to fix your eyes and your hearing and everything else. But again, I thank ADM for what y'all do too. I've had a lot of dealings with y'all. I worked for McCartney Construction in the 90s and the early 2000s, and we had a lot of things to come before ADM, and I appreciate it. I know you're doing your job, and but there again, I want to say I know nothing bad but good things about Alabama Power. Thank you. Any questions?
I'd just like to clarify for the record, are you currently the mayor of the city of Atala?
Sir?
Are you currently the mayor?
Yes, I am. I was the mayor. I know I've been in politics for 32 years, so.
Okay, so this is your second
Yes, sir.
time you served as mayor.
Well, I was a mayor in 92 to 98, got elected to the Senate, served 2010, got defeated in 2010, and came back and ran for mayor in 2012, I guess just glutton for punishment. But that's my hometown, like I say, and we still think it's the birthplace of Alabama Power anyway. And so I'm currently the mayor still, so.
All right, thank you.
I apologize for not.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me.
Next, we would like to call on Representative Gil Isabel, who is the House Representative for District 28.
Good evening, everyone. I actually came tonight really more to observe, but since they said you can't get in without speaking, I thought I would come in, and I would like to provide my support for the project itself. Alabama Power, they're made up of employees who are citizens of Alabama, and they are trying to do their best to protect the interest of citizens, not only in our area, but all over the state. I know that this coal ash pond is one of the smallest that they have, and I've actually been to the site. They've taken every precaution they can to make sure that the environmental impact is as little as possible. I know that within about a year or a year and a half ago, there was a fine levied on them, but from what I understand, the arsenic level that was reached, if it had been in the 90s, it would not have been an issue at all. but after the Obama administration, they raised those levels. So, but overall, I just wanted to provide my support to them. I know there's no perfect way to end this issue because there are going to be people on both sides. But if anybody can come up with a resolution that will not cost the taxpayers any funds out of their pocket, I would be more than glad to listen, and I'm sure that Alabama Power and ADM would be glad to listen as well. But as a citizen of Gadsden, I've lived in many other states around the country. I've been back in Alabama probably for about 20 years. Can't find a better place to live. You've got a lot of extremely positive things that are happening, but Alabama Power, as I said, as a citizen of the state of Alabama, is doing their best to remedy this situation to their best possible means. So just with those limited comments, I appreciate your time and appreciate y'all being here today, and have a great day. God bless you.
Thank you, Representative. I believe that's the conclusion of the elected officials who will be speaking tonight. Now we will proceed to the receipt of comments from members of the public. As indicated in the public notice for this hearing, oral testimony for each registered speaker is limited to 7 minutes. If anyone has prepared a statement that cannot be presented in 7 minutes or less, please use your time for oral testimony to summarize your comments and submit your full statement to the department in writing for placement in the record. Okay, please step on up to the microphone, and you can take your mask off if you would like. You're not required to, and speak clearly into the microphone. And please tell us your name and whether you're here speaking as an individual or on behalf of some other group or organization.
My name is Justin Overton. I'm speaking on behalf of Coosa River Keeper and its 1,200 dues-paying members. As I said, my name is Justin Overton. I'm the Executive Director and River Keeper at Coosa River Keeper. We're a river conservation nonprofit organization with over 1,200 dues-paying members. Our mission is to protect, restore, and promote the Coosa River and its tributaries in Alabama. I'm here tonight to voice concerns on behalf of the river, wildlife, and the families who rely on Neely Henry Lake for their drinking water supply, for sustenance, and for fun. All comments and concerns reference the CCR permit to close Plant Gadsden's ash pond at the Gadsden steam plant. As y'all know, the Gadsden coal ash pond sits on Neely Henry Lake, upstream from the heart of downtown Gadsden. Its use classification is public drinking water supply and fish and wildlife. The greater Gadsden area in Neely Henry Lake is heavily used for recreation, fishing tournaments, industry, and many local businesses that support the outdoor recreation industry. In a recent survey conducted by Jacksonville State University, 56% of locals identify boating as their most important recreational activity, and 44% identify fishing as their most important recreational activity. Good water quality is crucial to fishing, boating, and enjoying the river safely. In 2016, the Gadsden Coal Ash Pond was one of the first in the state to close. In their latest report, Alabama Power's own groundwater data shows increases in arsenic, boron, calcium, barium, and radium at their monitoring wells. Since then, citizens across Alabama, the river state, have loudly expressed their disgust for this utility's rationale in leaving their leaking coal ash pond on our river, and claiming that's the only option to deal with this toxic byproduct of burning coal. There's better ways to dispose of these contaminants, and it's simple. They should be in a dry-lined modern landfill away from our water. Alabama Power created this problem when they began disposing of highly toxic waste in unlined pits right next to our rivers and reservoirs in order to save money. The utility claims that there isn't, this was a good sentence too. The utility claims that there wasn't an easy or cheap fix to this big time problem, but there is. And it's a well-established, straightforward fix for Alabama's coal ash problem, and it's been implemented and is currently taking place right now in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, and soon to be in Tennessee. It's excavation and removal of this coal ash to modern lined landfills away from water. In Gadsden, the removal of this ash is the only proven long-term solution that we know that will protect the Coosa River, the drinking water supply, and the families who swim, fish, and boat along this iconic waterway. Regardless of the legal requirements in this permit, nothing changes the facts. The Gadsden coal ash pond sits in groundwater and is leaking contaminants. It's located 0.6 miles upstream from the Gadsden Waterworks and Sewer Board's drinking water intake. Why doesn't this facility have an emergency action plan or a hazard potential classification given its use as a public drinking water supply? What if there is a flood or a major failure? The close proximity to the drinking water supply should immediately cause ADEM to pause and reevaluate cap-in-place methodology. Given that the Gadsden pond is higher than permit level, which is defined to y'all as 100 times the legal limit, or 50% greater than allowed for radium. Meanwhile, the ongoing pollution has continued and will in perpetuity. Cap in place does not work, and the contamination is prevalent. It's already not working. The facility's closure process and ongoing groundwater monitoring violations only proves this. Alabama Power seems to be taking the approach that they're going to close the site regardless of whether they control the spread of the contaminants. This ash-contaminated groundwater has historically been flowing in all directions away from the ash impoundment, and no groundwater flow or transportation modeling of the site has been deployed to evaluate the effects of capping this toxic waste in place. Furthermore, Alabama has no laws or regulation on the books specifically ensuring the safety of our state's coal ash dams. We're the only state without these laws requiring state officials to inspect and guarantee the dams are operating properly. The draft permit proposed to control infiltration for 100 years, but the post-closure plan is for 30. This permit needs to identify who will be responsible in 2050 and set aside dedicated funding for monitoring, maintenance, and cap replacement. It's important to note there's been no modeling reported that evaluates the volume of water that can be expected to infiltrate into the covered ash pond by lateral flow, infiltration through the cap, or upward flow. It is known that the groundwater is moving radially from the pond, and the bottom of the ash pond is likely in 4 to 12 feet below the water table. This means that contaminated groundwater is near private residence to the east, Twin Bridges Golf Course to the west, and towards the Gadsden Water and Sewer Board's drinking water intake to the south. Dewatering the coal ash pond doesn't make groundwater go away. Even where dilution is the solution to Alabama Power's pollution, CCR contaminants can accumulate in sediment, which impacts local wildlife and fisheries. In the permit, it is noted that there could be an economic or environmental disaster, but there's not a real hazard to public health if the coal ash pond were to breach, fail, or flood. But y'all, if you look at an aerial map, it's ridiculously close to the river and ridiculously close to the drinking water intake. The potential loss if there was a coal ash failure would be an economic and environmental disaster. According to that study I referenced earlier from Jacksonville State University, the total regional economic impact of the Coosa River and Neely Henry Lake amounts to $570 million, with over $10.4 million in new revenue coming from bass fishing tournaments alone. Bass tournaments and anglers are an important component of the economics here and boosting tourism. During 2017, there were 143 bass tournaments and over 8,000 anglers fishing Neely Henry Lake. During 2016, new and used boat sales for this region were $8.5 million and climbed to $8.8 in 2017. A couple weeks ago, Gadsden hosted the Bassmaster Classic, and the Gadsden Times reported that that single event had an economic impact of more than $1 million in the course of a week. Protecting Neely Henry Lake is as an economic engine, an environmental treasure, and the public drinking water supply is of the utmost importance. Having a toxic-laden coal ash pond right beside a river in the middle of a city is just not logical. If Alabama Power is allowed to leave their toxic coal ash on the banks of the Coosa River, they're not just jeopardizing public health or ensuring pollution for years to come. They're jeopardizing an entire economy that thrives around the lake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, how are you?
We're good. Please step up to the microphone and tell us your name and tell us whether you're speaking on behalf of yourself or some other organization.
Sure. My name is Blake Hardwick, and I am an attorney by trade, but I serve as executive director of the Coosa Alabama River Improvement Association, and I also serve as secretary-treasurer of the Coalition of Alabama Waterways Associations. The Coosa Alabama River Association was actually founded 130 years ago, back in 1890 here in Gadsden, Alabama, by a group of businessmen who was headed by William Patrick Lay, who was later the founder of Alabama Power in 1906. Our members include municipalities, county commissions, corporations, small businesses, and individuals located throughout the Coosa, Tallapoosa, and Alabama River basins. We go from Rome, Georgia, all the way to Mobile, Alabama. And improving the river, developing various attributes and capabilities of the river for the benefit of the citizens of Alabama is one of our core missions. Today, improving also means promoting economic development such as full-service marinas and campgrounds and the ecological health of the entire river basin through reasonable and responsible federal and state legislation, as well as public and private investment. We're also a member of the Coalition of Alabama Waterway Associations, which is made up of all of the river systems here in Alabama, with the Coosa, Alabama, Tri-Rivers, which is the ACF, Apalachicola Flint, Chattahoochee, the Tennessee Tombigbee, and the Tennessee River Valley Association. And CAWA's members also strongly believe that in the quality and quantity of water resources, as well as economic development. And our communities throughout the state rely on waterways to provide a sustainable, low-impact transportation infrastructure, tourism and recreational opportunities, municipal water supply, and industrial withdrawals and discharge. Alabama Power has been and continues to be a valuable partner to not just the Coosa Alabama River Association, but also to the Coalition of Alabama Waterways. They've been committed to meeting the most current, affordable, and future energy needs of our consumers located along the river basins. They have what I believe is a safe closure process. I know that they've closed the two coal plants here in Gadsden and moved to natural gas. But we know in that closure process that they are concerned about the safety of the communities and the environment that we all share. Federal rules supported by both Obama and the Trump administrations provide for this way of safely closing ash storage sites. The EPA has approved this method of sealing coal ash in place as being just as protective of the environment as removing the coal ash and transporting it elsewhere. I'll make the argument that I believe it's safer to actually cap and close in place instead of moving truckloads throughout the communities in Alabama. However, both closure methods, seal in place and close by removal, require electricity utilities to meet the same groundwater performance standards. Sealing these sites also avoids potential safety issues that can arise from trucking the large volumes of coal ash through Alabama communities, which could take for decades. For these reasons, we support Alabama Power's closure and corrective action plans. Scientific data shows these plans will achieve compliance with groundwater protection standards. I urge you to move forward in approving the CCR permitting process and allowing Alabama Power to proceed with the seal and closure method. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Please step on up to the microphone and state your full name for the record and tell us whether you're speaking on behalf of yourself or some other group or organization.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of the Energy Institute of Alabama. My name is Seth Merrill Hammett. I'm chairman of the Institute. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the application filed by Alabama Power Company to cap in place the coal ash pond that's inactive here in this area. A few points I'd like to make, and I'll make those fairly succinctly and briefly. The federal rules that we're following here were promulgated by the Obama administration and continued by the current administration. So this is not something new and different. As required by this federal law, Alabama Power is joining power providers nationwide in closing its coal ash sites. The EPA has approved the method of sealing the coal ash in place as being just as protective of the environment as removing the coal ash and transporting it elsewhere. As a matter of fact, some would say it's safer because of a potential for spill, for accident with the trucking of this ash to some other site. Both closure methods, seal in place and close by removal, require utilities to meet the same groundwater performance standards, and sealing the sites in place also provides potential safety issues that can arise, again, from trucking these large volumes of coal ash. The final point I would make is those of us that work in this industry, which I'm proud to say that I do, live here too. We've got children, some of us have grandchildren that live here in this state, and we're not going to do anything to endanger them, so we're going to follow the science. And the science does allow for this procedure to be used in this instance. And I'd ask you to approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is this okay?
Yes, you can remove your mask. We need to reset the clock, and please pay attention to the clock. You've got 7 minutes to give your comments tonight. Start out by telling us your full name and whether you're speaking on behalf of yourself individually or some other group or organization.
Sure. My name is Richie Gadsden. I'm just a citizen here in Alabama. I live in Shelby County, but I've been in Alabama about 20 years. Moved here from Georgia, and I'm speaking just from my I guess, context as a citizen. I'm a pretty obsessive fisherman and an outdoorsman. I do a lot of paddling on the Coosa River, a lot of fishing on the Coosa River, and so my comments are kind of coming from that, from that lens of seeing things. I submitted some written statements last week, but it was really important to me, knowing that this forum existed, to make the drive up from Birmingham and just, put some faces, in my mind, besides just the 8M that I see on the computer screen. So thank you guys for making this option available. I guess I really just want to make 2 points. I know we're here to talk about the river and the environmental impacts there, so I'll use that as context, but I guess my points are mostly about human nature. The first is that I genuinely believe that the folks at Alabama Power and at 8M here want to do the right thing. I mean, I think that there's good people at Alabama Power. I know that. In fact, I spent about 10 years when I graduated from college working doing commercial insurance brokerage for the energy industry, and specifically the regulated utility and independent power producer industry. So my job was to place liability and property insurance programs for them. I got to know a lot of people at Southern Company that way, and they're good folks. The second thing, though, there's a second point I guess I'd like to make is I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, and they're awesome kids. I'm super proud of them, love them to death. One thing about them that I've learned is that they will both do exactly whatever they can get away with. If it's something they like, they're going to overindulge until somebody pulls them back. And if it's something that they don't like or that costs them something, they're going to toe the line, just the minimum amount. And I think that if we all look at ourselves inwardly a little bit, we realize that there's a 7-year-old down there in all of us. And so I think that's what we're combating a little bit in this particular instance. I think that anecdotally and logically, the idea of keeping a coal ash pond full of known carcinogens and toxins that are just poison, concentrated poison, 100-something feet from the banks of a major river that moves and bends and, that's right there on the water table, I think logically that makes 0 sense. But if nobody reins them back, they're going to do it. People are going to do whatever they can get away with. And so I'm hopeful that ADEM, and I know that you guys already have. I mean, it's not like we're at the start of this process. We're on the tail end of this process. A lot of research has been done. A lot of data has been compiled. But I hope that ADEM will take the opportunity to really dig into the data that's been put out so far and agree that letting Alabama Power or letting Southern Company keep their coal ash exactly where it's located right now is just dumb. In light of public health and environmental health. I think there's a couple of solutions available. I don't know what the previous commenters before me have said. I really look forward to watching this playback when you guys have it available to see what everybody said. But I know that we've got a couple of options available. The first is we could dig up, or Alabama Power could dig up and remove the coal ash that's currently being stored at the Gadsden plant and move it to an inland, dry landfill. In fact, that's something that has been done by other Southern Company subsidiaries, Georgia Power, and other regulated utilities across the country. So it wouldn't be the first time that's done. It is costly, but I think that's the right solution. Alternatively, if for whatever reason that's too expensive or too much work or whatever, I personally, and I think a lot of citizens like me, would be fine if we cemented the ash in place to prevent it from leaking. I think the technical term is ISS, remembering back from environmental insurance days, but in situ solidification or in situ solidization, where we literally, peel the top back and pour concrete on top of the poison and solidify it in place so that it doesn't leach into the groundwater. And when I say leach into the groundwater, I know you guys are aware of the studies that have been done, but I mean, even on Alabama Power's own website, there are, publicized data and a lot of different instances of arsenic and lithium discharge levels being much, much higher than permitted or what would be deemed to be safe. That's continuing to happen right now. And the thing about a river is that it doesn't just stay in one place. The Coosa is going to move and change over time the way that it has for eons before. So I just think, the status quo of leaving ash where it is right now in an unlined pit and letting it leach into the groundwater and into the river, it just can't happen. I think I'm doing almost perfect on time, so that's really all I've got to say, and I am very thankful for the forum you guys have given me here.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please keep an eye on the clock here.
Okay.
We ask you to limit your comments to 7 minutes.
All right.
If you would start by telling us your name and whether or not you're here to speak on behalf of yourself individually or on behalf of some other group or organization, and please identify them.
Sure. My name is Keith Johnson. I'm director of the Alabama office of the Southern Environmental Law Center, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Southern Environmental Law Center and our partner groups such as Coosa River Keeper. We are still in the process of reviewing this draft CCR permit, and I'm not giving you our complete comments tonight, but I'm giving you a summary of some of the issues that we have identified, and I want to thank you for having this public meeting. You know, the Gadsden coal ash pond generally is different from the rest of these coal ash ponds that Alabama Power is capping and closing in place, because this has already been capped and closed in place. So essentially, it's been capped since 2018. The draft plans and the closure plans that Alabama Power's submitting to you guys in this draft permit that you guys have issued is just it's a cookie cutter approach that the utility has been using at every site to cap and close every coal ash pond, regardless of what the underlying geology is or what's happening in the groundwater underneath it at every site. We think that's a problem. And specifically because in this area and in many of the other areas that we've looked at these plans, you can't control the infiltration and saturation of the coal ash by the groundwater. And a cap is not going to do that. You know, as you know, this coal ash pond is in the low-lying areas within the floodplain of the Coosa River, right beside the Coosa River. And Alabama Power made the decision to put it there. And now they want to leave it there for eternity. And it's of consequence here because, as you know, there's a water intake for the city of Gadsden approximately a mile down from this coal ash pond. So we know that, you know, this coal ash pond stopped receiving ash, I think, in late 2015, according to the file, and then it was capped in 2018, and it's still contaminating the ground and the surface water around it. The most recent groundwater monitoring reports show statistically significant increase in detection contaminants such as boron, arsenic, lithium sulfate at 13 monitoring wells, basically all around the coal ash pond. So we know it's contaminating. It has been for decades, and it will continue to do so regardless of this cap. And you know, one thing we don't know is what would, because we don't see that in the file, is what would be a more effective way to control this contamination. And we know that excavation removal at other sites and other places throughout the Southeast has proven to be the more effective closure technique. So some of the deficiencies that we see particularly to this permit is that it's being left in the groundwater. Coal ash is beneath the groundwater here. The base of the coal ash is beneath the top of the groundwater surface and will remain so because it's below the surface elevation of the Coosa River. Contaminated leachate will continue to saturate the CCR waste and seep into the underlying groundwater unless the excess water is removed. And the excess water can't be removed because you still have groundwater in this area. You still will have groundwater in this area. Capping does not slow the natural flow of contaminated leachate from the ash into the groundwater and will not impede the flow of groundwater through and from the waste beneath the artificial cap, especially since the coal ash is capped in the floodplain. And part of the remedy that Alabama Power is proposing along with this cap is monitored natural attenuation, which, as you know, is just sit back and let, hopefully the levels will fall sometime soon of this contaminated groundwater. And we know even by Alabama Power's own documents, sometimes they say 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and sometimes they just say indefinite as far as this monitored natural attenuation actually working. At this point, even with the draft permit issued, we still don't know what the true extent of the contamination is or how pervasive it might be. We don't know how far the contamination plumes have moved. We don't know the extent of the lateral or vertical contamination. And without this information, Alabama Power and frankly the draft permit can't stop the current pollution. We also know that one reason that this coal ash pond has to close is because it's less than 5 feet from the uppermost aquifer. There is no modeling that we've seen to determine how long it might take to achieve the desired water quality. If ADEM doesn't have this information, or it hasn't been publicly released, or it's not in the file, or if it's out there, that's something that the public should have. Nothing in the closure plans or the draft permit requires an evaluation of the volume of water that can be expected to infiltrate from the covered CCR that's in place now, the 1.2 million tons that's currently capped. There's no indication anywhere in the documents that we've seen of sampling taking outside of the impoundment property to understand or delineate those contamination plumes. And then we have a question about what happens after the 30-year post-care period. Is that just a liability that's imposed on the surrounding community and government around here? There should be some provision made for who will be responsible after that post-closure period. And then just very practically, you should not remove boron from an assessment monitoring contaminant in this permit like you've given a variance to Alabama Power for. As I've testified to in several of these other permits, there's more protective ways to do this, and it's happening. And that's excavation and removal from these sites to dry line landfills that are not below the groundwater table. It's happening at every site. Duke Energy's doing it at every site, North Carolina, Virginia. Georgia Power's doing it over in Georgia. So I guess quickly in closing, I would just say that this permit doesn't satisfy the federal CCR rules and even the state CCR rules. And ADEM should go back and require Alabama Power to provide the information that truly shows the extent of contamination and how this will actually solve the groundwater contamination and the contamination happening around it now. I appreciate the opportunity to make these comments.
Thank you for your comments.
Scott?
Good evening. Please step on up to the microphone and please take notice of the clock over here. Your comments need to be limited to 7 minutes. Please tell us your full name and whether you're here to speak on your individual behalf or whether you're speaking on behalf of some other group or organization.
My name is Donna Matthews, and I am here as a citizen, affiliated with no organization. As a concerned lay citizen, I offer the following comments. Life lesson 101. If you make a mess, you clean it up. Period. Sweeping dust under the bed is not cleaning the room. No excuses, no whining, get over it, do the job, clean it up. Alabama Power has the dual distinctions of leading the Southern Company family of utilities in profitability and in leading in its stubborn insistence to avoid responsibility for the environmental degradations it creates. As you are no doubt aware, utilities in North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee are heads and feet above Alabama Power when it comes to accepting responsibility for and dealing with their ubiquitous toxic coal ash residue. As distasteful as Governor Ivey may have found issuing repeatedly and extended protected COVID-19 statewide mandate, she made the difficult call, and she stands by it in her role to protect the citizens of Alabama. It is her job to place sound leadership above popularity or political pressure. The analogy extends to the role of ADEM. It is your job to protect the citizens of Alabama from dangerous byproducts of industry. You have the tools you need. You have a clear blueprint laid before you. It is time for you to make the difficult call to require Alabama Power to remove toxic coal ash from sites adjacent to public water bodies and to deal with the residue responsibly. There is simply not one legitimate argument to be made that is more powerful than the risk imposed by the presence of toxic coal ash to our waterways, our groundwater, and our citizenry. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please step right on up. Keep an eye on the clock here. You've got 7 minutes to make your comments. Please tell us your full name and whether you're here speaking on your individual behalf or on behalf of some other group or organization.
Thank you. My name is Heather Brothers New. I am speaking on behalf of myself as well as the Chamber of Gadsden and Etowah County. I hope you don't mind. I made myself a few notes, and I promise I won't take your full 7 minutes because I know you guys are probably tired. I want to express, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to express the wonderful partnership that we have experienced with Alabama Power. They have been in lockstep with us as we have investigated the opportunity for incubation in our community. They are very active and progressive with us as we support entrepreneurship. They have been critical in identifying economic gaps in our community and helping us with identifying opportunities to recruit. They've let us know about traffic counts, other data that's critical in support of recruitment opportunities. And they've also given us a lot of information that's related to the redevelopment opportunities, especially those related to opportunity zones. They've supported small business in our community. I've been with the Chamber for 9 years now, and from the very beginning, they have been at the forefront of supporting small business in our community through our recognition programs, through identification of ways that small businesses can save money through reduction in utility costs. And you would be hard-pressed in our community to find a nonprofit that has not received direct support from Alabama Power, whether that is an individual, an employee who has served on a board, who has dug a ditch, cleaned a window, painted a room, or has provided financial support for programs that are essential for the greater good of our community. We have found Alabama Power to be one of the forefront cornerstones of our community as far as success and raising the bar so that more people can succeed in business as well as individually. And that is all I have.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Please come on up to the microphone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please keep an eye on the clock here. You've got 7 minutes to make your comments. If you would begin by telling us your full name and whether you're speaking on behalf of yourself or some other group or organization.
And this is okay to?
It's okay to remove.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Barganier. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Manufacture Alabama. So I'm speaking on behalf of the manufacturing industry in this hearing. We are the state's only trade association that's dedicated specifically to the needs of manufacturers across Alabama. And Manufacture Alabama works firsthand with Alabama Power Company through our environmental working groups. And those groups are made up of various industries across the state. And we are acutely aware of the commitment Alabama Power has to compliance and stewardship. Manufacture Alabama and our environmental committee support ADM's permit for the safe closing and sealing of the CCR impoundments at Alabama Power's Gadsden plant. As you know, the rules used to develop the plan for closing this impoundment were developed by the EPA under the former Obama administration and were left largely unchanged by the current Trump administration's EPA. We support Alabama Power in this effort and strongly encourage ADM to issue this permit. We appreciate that Alabama Power is not only following the rules, but also going above and beyond with a plan that will protect public health and the environment. They have been and continue to be an excellent partner for the state's manufacturing industry, and we appreciate their environmental and conservation efforts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good evening.
That's everybody right now.
Yeah, that's everybody right now, but we have 2 or 3 more that's registered, so we want to go off record first, the short break.
What they here?
Not yet, but we're giving them till their window to make sure.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let's take a, say, a 10-minute break, and we'll be right back. It's now 7:14, and we had taken a short break just to see if anybody else would arrive or showed up tonight to make comments, and we had some of the other folks that had signed up, they haven't appeared at this point, so we're going to go ahead and conclude the hearing. Since there are no further registered speakers, please be advised that unless otherwise notified, the public comment period will end at 5:00 p.m. on Tuesday, November the 17th of 2020. All comments must be received at the office of the department in Montgomery by that time. After consideration of all oral and written comments, the department will make its determination regarding the proposed permit action and prepare responses to all relevant comments. Thank you for your participation this evening. This hearing is adjourned.